Ati for your makwa babadala Likee TV Be sesene na channel so hit adoman subscribe like share ma wona pense mi beti so nya bente jamre ni adaje mu mansim ni kuti nsemane de etodwanati for Mahama ene akupi mo Tema na atifo ene day Tema hono jai enkofo di twi na metimi wote enkofo dodo ne de NPP fofa edi twi na papande samatotudwa wo chemu se eya LGBT bill ya akupi omampanyi kufo do anim ya ompeso obesan no yeso bi petition Supreme Court ono de ya kwese flakadam bi na papa ne peso ye na yimunglo mi ntin dwomba yewura dwondoma ni Mahama ye ba de ka hono ye bedom
that he says he won't sign it because somebody has filed a suit with the Supreme Court. So he's become entangled with some legalese. Reverend S.N.M.S. had talked about it a few days ago, and what he said has gone viral. But we'll just continue to watch and see what happens. But this is what the reason for being self-reliant is. If you are not self-reliant, that's when people can dictate to you. If we were self-reliant, nobody will come and ask us to do this or to do that. And so one of the key economic policies we must pursue is one of self-reliance. And it's been done in this country before. For those of us who are old enough, we remember General Likee Champon's time. Operation Feed Yourself, Operation Feed Your Industries. Self-reliance was the aim that this government was pursuing, so that we could be proud, dignified people because we're able to feed ourselves. And so that will be part of the key policy that we pursue, so that tomorrow somebody won't come and tell us to do this or that, because if you do that, I will do this. And so that's something that we should look at. With regards to the mission schools, I mentioned it already, that the time has come for us to bring the church and government together to man the schools. And so we are proposing that for the mission schools, we'll make sure that the chair of the board of the school is from the church. And then they will also have a hand. The mission schools will play a bigger role in the selection of who becomes the headmaster, so that the mission can have some control. These schools were transferred to government because government had more resources to expand in terms of infrastructure. And so most of the schools came into government, even for new community schools that are being set up. Anywhere I go, people are saying, adopt our secondary school, because they know once you adopt it, government will invest in it and expand the school. But if it belongs to a mission like Ahmadiyya, to Methodists, to Assemblies of God, we must make sure that that faith-based organization has a greater role in terms of running the school. With regards to Bishop Kesi, Bishop, advocated that I seek wisdom from God. I'm not waiting to get into office to do that. I already seek the face of God in everything that I do. And I pray before I make most decisions. I have had this in prayer for quite a while, and my decision to offer myself to my party was guided by that godly wisdom. And so you can be sure that I will not forsake it. Bishop Kesi also talked about the future of our youth. Our youth are beginning to lose hope in the future because they don't see any prospects for them. Recently, the statistics that have come from the Ghana Fiscal Services say that unemployment has risen to 14.7%. In 2016, it was 8.5%. It's gone up to 14.7%. But the more unfortunate thing, and what we should be watching, is that the statistical services say that the unemployment rate amongst the higher educated from tertiary is higher than those secondary and below. So the higher you rise, the less likely you are to get a job. And that is a very dangerous development. Before, the higher you went, the more likely you were to get employed. Unfortunately, it has reversed now. And so of that 14.7% unemployment rate, tertiary trained graduates are a bigger chunk than those below secondary and basic education. And so it's something that we need to look at. And so the next government's, major focus must be putting in policies that will create jobs, jobs, and jobs. And these should not be artificial jobs like we normally do. You do NAPCO, and you know that you have no sustainable place to put them after the 3 years when they graduate from NAPCO. And yet it is just done to win political points. Oh, we've given 100,000 young people jobs. And now even they finish the NAPCO, you owe them 9 months allowance arrears, and government is refusing to pay it. And so we must aim more at sustainable jobs. And we can get those sustainable jobs in many places, including the agricultural value chain, agribusiness, in the mineral sector. God has blessed us with many minerals. Every day new mines are being discovered. And if we're able to change the mining laws in order that we indigenize some of this mining activity, it will create more jobs for our people instead of all the expatriates who come and mine, take the profits away. If we make more profit from our mineral activities, we can invest it in industry so that we create more factories to produce items for ourselves and also create jobs for our people. And so Bishop Mensah talked about Akroma, who was our first president. He's one of our most respected presidents, not only domestically but internationally. He's been one of the greatest presidents. And his aim was to make Ghana an industrial powerhouse and make it self-sufficient. And so he set up Gayhawk Brick and Tile, Asebu Lime Factory, Ashanti Shoe Factory, Kumasi Shoe Factory. I mean, just name it. Gayhawk Distilleries. I mean, so many factories and infrastructure. Akosombo Dam. Till date, Akosombo Dam produces 30% of Ghana's electricity consumption, something that he opened as far back as 1960. And so what we need is visionary leadership that will put in the things that will transform our country. And Bishop talked about suspending Independence Day. I don't know how much it costs, but I think what you want to address is that we must cut waste, because there's a lot of waste in the system. If we cut down waste, we would have more money to invest in other productive sectors of the economy. And so I would say that we should look at where we can cut waste so that we can put it in our schools, in our hospitals, and other places. One of the things that Professor Mills's government and mine were good at doing was removing schools under trees. And all we did was, every year we budgeted for taking out a certain number of schools under trees. But at the same time, we transferred 7.5% of total government revenue to the district assemblies. And so we told every district assembly, every year we want you to take out 2 schools under trees and to build 4 CHIPS compounds. The rest of the money you can do.
That's it for Mahama and Samuel did today. Because a mood. Mahama Munsem be mood pa. Say all the policies that they are saying that maybe say when they come to power on be implemented there, then they have the green light to win majority's vote.
Whatever you want with it. And so adding what we were building from the budget, including what the district assemblies were building, by the time we left office, we had built more than 1,800 new schools, where formerly schools were under trees, and we had built more than 4,600 CHIPS compounds across the country, because we have 260 districts. And so imagine each one is building 2 schools per year. For 4 years, that's 8 schools. And if you multiply 8 by 260, you can imagine the number of schools. And then you multiply 4 CHIPS compounds by 260, 4 every year. So that's 16 CHIPS compounds by 260. You can imagine the number of CHIPS compounds we'll be able to build. We'll realign this kind of budgeting and expenditure so that we can take out more of the schools under trees and then also build more CHIPS compounds. The CHIPS compounds have become very important because it takes health to the doorsteps of the people. You can't build a hospital in every village, but you can have a small CHIPS compound with a health worker there. The health worker is able to treat small sicknesses like typhoid, malaria, and those kinds of things, sicknesses. But for where the sickness is more complicated, there should be a referral hospital not too far away where they can refer the patient. And that's why we're building the district hospitals and CHIPS compounds within the catchment area of the district hospitals. This government started the Agenda 111, they call it, but they started with 80 hospitals. I don't know what survey was done before the hospitals are being put in, but most of them are at a certain stage of completion. One would have thought that they will start with what they can do and finish. And so if you can do 40 hospitals, finish and open them, then you start another. But you spread to 80 hospitals, by the time they leave office, I don't think many of them would have been completed. And then it means that the next government must find money to continue and complete all these hospitals. But I've made a pledge that we're not going to abandon any projects. Indeed, I said that we're not going to be in a hurry. I said that we're not going to be in a hurry to start new projects. The little resources we have we'll use to complete ongoing and abandoned projects. Several of the E-block schools I started have been abandoned, and so we would look to continue them. They are building these new hospitals. We'll look for the resources to complete them and put equipment there so that they can be of benefit to the people. The taxpayers' money is used to build these things. So when you build it and a new government comes and they leave it, another government comes and they leave it, it is a waste of the taxpayers' money. And so better to complete them and put them to good use. There are many of these projects in the secondary schools, dining halls, dormitory blocks, administration blocks, and other things, lecture rooms that were started in other governments have all been abandoned. And so we're not waiting till we come into government. We've commissioned an inventory taking in every district to give us an inventory of what all the abandoned projects are, what is their stage of completion, so that as soon as we come into office, we know exactly what budget we are putting every year to continue those projects until we finish them. Reverend Mensah also talked about the national vision, and that's been one of the problems we have. Rawlings had Vision 2020, and when President Kufuor came, 2020 was thrown out of the window, and they brought the poverty reduction strategy, growth and poverty reduction strategy, GPRS or something like that. And then when he left, Agenda for Transformation came. And then when I came, I brought the 40-year development plan. And when President Akufo-Addo came, he threw the 40-year development. He took part of it and created his Ghana Beyond Aid. And so we don't have a specific plan that we all are working to. And so I'm suggesting that we have the 40-year development plan. We can compress it into a 20-year plan with 4-year segments. And so it's 20 years, we expect to be here in 20 years. But every 4 years, this is where we must reach. Every 4 years, this is where we must reach. And all of us must sign on to the plan so that we implement it together. Whether it's Mahama in power or somebody else comes into power, they will continue their 4-year leg of it so that it becomes like a relay race. And then politics in the security services, you're right, recruitment has been partisan, but what I've even heard recently is the sale of positions, public appointments. And so if you're a teacher, you have to go and pay before you are taken. If you want to enter the armed forces or the police, they are charging children as much as 30,000 cedis before they give them employment. I think we must put a firm foot down and stop this. Anybody who is caught doing it must be dealt with so drastically that other people will think twice before they attempt to do that. Citizenship and patriotism, moral education. When we were young, we used to learn religious and moral education in school. It was a subject that we studied. There was a master for RME, and we used to learn it. Now RME is lost in the curriculum. You can't find where it is. When you ask, they say, oh, it's part of social studies. You know, you have to go and search in social studies to look for where some small chapters of RME have been put in. I think we must expand the study of RME. because some of those religious principles we studied in school are still what is guiding us in terms of our conduct and our behavior. When we were young too, we had patriotism and civic education in school. We were taught how to be a responsible citizen of your country. You know, we were taught the national pledge. We were taught how to stand at attention with your chest out when the national anthem is being played. We even had a book they call Courtesy for Boys and Girls. We were taught how to sit and have table manners, how to be, you know, polite to elders in a bus. If an elderly person comes in, you, the young person, must get up and give up your seat. All these things we were taught, and we've grown up with them. They say that teach the young the way they should go, and when they grow, they will not depart from it. And so we must catch them young by including all this in the curriculum so that our children will grow up knowing what the values of our morality are and what the value of good citizenship is. Bishop Nikwe called for peace in elections. I can assure you we are a very peaceful party, and we do not advocate violence. And so we will do our best to make sure that elections are peaceful. But while we look at peace, we must also look at justice. I mean, nobody will sit down to see somebody cheating.
Era basta some of your broad NDC TV, but say notification bell na click so see drop in content on sa be can be Akroma.